Hopkins wasn't only innovative in coming up with his own terminology for the way nature functions and the way that once you become aware of nature functioning, that would of course be in-scape and in-stress. He was also innovative in, how shall I put it? He was also innovative in the way he wanted his poems to sound. In particular, he was interested in the rhythm of his poems. And he came up with this concept known as sprung rhythm, which we can best understand by contrasting it to traditional ways that poetic lines have been organized in English. So as we know from studying, say, the sonnets of Wordsworth or the sonnets of Keats, these two poets, in writing their sonnets, used the line that is appropriate to both Italian sonnets and English sonnets, and that, of course, is iambic pentameter. And how does that work? You have 5 feet, and each foot is composed of 2 syllables, and each foot features a first syllable that is unstressed and a second syllable that is stressed. Da-da, da-da, da-da. When I have fears that I may cease to be before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain. So this accentual syllabic way of thinking about poetic lines really organized the way poets thought about rhythm from Shakespeare's time all the way up until, say, the late Victorian period. By the time we get to modernism and late 20th century poetry, 21st century poetry, free verse is largely being used. But so the iambic is the primary foot used by most poets writing in traditional forms. But there are, of course, other ways to think about the rhythm of a poetic line. Some poets might favor trochaic feet. That's a 2-syllable foot with a stress followed by an unstressed, da, da. We notice the trochaic foot being very prevalent in Locksley Hall by Tennyson, right? So anapestic foot, dactylic foot, spondaic foot, pyrrhic foot. These are all syllabic units, a foot composed of a certain number of syllables, and within that certain number of syllables, there is a set pattern of stress or accent. Now, there are kinds of poetry that have veered from this, and this is known as accentual poetry or poetry of stress, where it's not the number of syllables in a foot that is important so much as where the stresses occur in the line. So you can see this in Chaucer's poetry, or you can see it in some Old English poetry, where the poet may say, I want 4 stresses in my line. I don't really care about how many unstressed syllables I have. Maybe I'll have a stress followed by 2 unstressed. Maybe I'll have a stress followed by 5 unstressed. Maybe I'll have a stress followed by a stressed. But the point is, I might just be going for 4 stresses in my line. And I don't care about how the stresses are connected to the other syllables in set patterns. So Hopkins is in this accentual tradition in coming up with sprung rhythm. He believed that for poetry to approach the way we actually speak, we should focus on the accents, focus on the stresses, and not on the unaccented or unstressed syllables. So he imagined that in each line, he would have a certain number of stresses, and each stress could be followed by 1 syllable or 2 syllables or 3 syllables, or the stress could be followed by another stress. And sometimes if you read a Hopkins poem, you'll actually see him marking the stresses to try to teach readers how to understand, how to read the verse. So we can look at a poem like The Wind Hover, and we can see this at work. It's a sonnet, yes, and we would expect a sonnet, traditionally speaking, to have in each line 5 iambic feet. But in this sonnet, look how it works. The first line, I caught this morning's minion. I caught this morning, morning's minion king. All right, that's 10. But look at how it's stressed. We don't have that iambic. I caught this morning, morning's minion. See, I can't fit it into the iambic foot. I tried to, but it's I caught this morning, morning's minion king. So caught would be accented. Morning, mourn would be accented, the first syllable. No, you wouldn't say morning. Morning's the first syllable. So I caught this morning, morning's minion. So caught, mourn, min, and then of course king. So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accents in that line, but they would not fit within the category of iambic pentameter. Now the next line, dumb of day lights doffin, dapple dawn drawn falcon in his riding. What, 17 syllables? So that's not iambic pentameter at all. So what syllables would be accented in that line? Now, there's no set pattern. It depends really on how you read, and we might disagree about which syllables should be accented. But certainly we can agree on some. Day, daylights, dolphin, dapple, dawn, drawn, falcon. So day, doff, dap, dawn, drawn, falc, ride. That would be how I would mark it. But again, what does the sprung rhythm do? It's a way that Hopkins, I think, expresses the excitement one might feel in experiencing a creature shot through with divinity. You're not going to use iambic pentameter to describe that. Your speech is going to be kind of wild and dynamic, and you're going to be interested in sound and music that feels spontaneous. And the sprung rhythm allows the line to feel more spontaneous, less controlled. Also, it gives the line more sonic dynamism. It's more focused on beats, which gives a kind of strength to the line. And also, the sprung rhythm allows for a variety of line length in a sonnet. You're not locked into the 10 syllables. So those are 3 ways I think that sprung rhythm functions for Hopkins as a way of expressing in stress. It becomes a dynamic rhythm appropriate to the excitement one feels when one becomes aware of the inscape of God shining through a particular creature.